It's my honor and pleasure to introduce Greg Landua, who's the next speaker on this panel. He's from Genesis, and they do global work as well from the standpoint of working with some of the companies that are leading in the regenerative thinking with regard to cropping systems and some of their important crops in cocoa and some of these unique and individually and importantly healthy foods, and working towards the perennial systems as well to try and establish perennial agriculture in an opportunity for obviously less tillage and an opportunity to build more resilient systems. With that, I'd like to introduce Greg.
All right, everybody. So who here is a believer in soil as the great hope of humanity? Raise your hand. All right, awesome. So we can just start from there and keep going, right? So just a little bit about me. So I work with farmers mostly in the global south, personally. The design group that I'm a part of works all over the world, and we really we try to approach the problem holistically, noticing, and one of the things that I've noticed, one of the things that I want to talk about with everybody is actually that it's extraordinarily difficult to regenerate soil without regenerating the mind. Whether it's of the company that's purchasing an ingredient, or the consumer that's purchasing a product, or of the farmer who's managing the agro-ecosystem that's producing that ingredient. You know, all these great slides that we've seen, you know, just think of the metaphor of the soil as mind. So if we have minds that are fragmented by the tillage of our reductionist thinking, we're going to dissolve our capacity to hold steady and approach a goal as audacious and important as sequestering all atmospheric carbon that's been produced during the Industrial Revolution into biological sinks is going to be very hard, because our will just erode into the oceans of despair. Yeah? But if we can actually hold our minds together and our collective will together, then all of these things become remarkably possible all of a sudden, right? A great thinker once said, Bill Mollison, who I would consider a luminary in inviting us to think regeneratively, said, you know, although the world's problems remain complex and challenging, the solutions are embarrassingly simple. Okay, one of the big simple solutions here has to do with the ecology of our mind. Okay, you guys might be asking, what's this guy prattling on about? What exactly are you talking about? Well, for a moment, let's think about the work that needs to be done in order to understand the complexity of living systems. And Ray was speaking towards this, right? So what needs to happen? If you ask a question, what's the fastest way to kill blight on corn? What kind of answer are you going to come up with to that question? Well, the soil may not be the fastest way to do that, actually. But if the question's different, if the question is something like, what are the conditions in which blight does not ever reach epidemic status in an ecosystem, then soil emerges, right? So I just want to propose that perhaps there's something about the way that we're currently operating as a society in which we're getting the right answers to the wrong questions. So what are the right questions? Does anybody have a What's the right question to ask right now? We're all together. What's the right question? There are no right questions, but give it a crack. Yeah, so if I might, we might say, what does an agricultural system look like that values farmers deeply as the basis of our entire civilization, right? Does civilization exist without agriculture? No, it doesn't, okay? And does agriculture exist without soil? No, it doesn't. Okay, so what does it look like when we deeply value farmers? Okay, I think that's a really good question, and I'd like to sort of speak to the idea that in order to answer that question, we're all going to have to be pretty courageous in applying the same sort of rigor and ability to actually look at what's really happening and not trust reductionist abstractions. Yeah, so that soil test, that's a brilliant. So what happens when you go to a farmer and they're living in the Midwest and they're spraying chemicals and there's cancer in their family and they're eating TV dinners and they're, shopping at Walmart and all of these different things? And what happens when you go to someone who's a farmer and their kids are working with them on the farm and there's a whole bunch of different things going on? And what happens when we say, well, but if you're taking the reductionist mindset, the farmer A, exhibit A, there's much more financial capital flowing through that system. So therefore, it must be superior. And exhibit B, there's hardly any financial capital flowing there. So what are the fundamental questions that we need to ask in order to move the conversation forward? That's a good one. But what does food waste have to do with soil health? So in a system, so just to in a natural system, if you're in the Amazon jungle and you see a flock of scarlet macaws coming, what are they doing? They're eating like 5 or 10% of every seed and the rest is dropping. Is that waste? Right, they're providing a key ecological service for every other animal that comes and cleans it up, and and some of them fall and they sprout, and all of these different things happen. So I guess I would ask, how do we connect waste back into the whole system, right? So if the question is, how do we reduce food waste? I think we go off on a tangent because we're trying to get the right answer to the very simple question. It's like, how do you fix blight? How do you fix this one thing? Instead, I want to propose that if we start getting in the habit of asking, how do we link this particular aspect of the whole system that we notice is out of balance back to the whole system in a powerful way, we'll start to get very interesting answers. So how does wastage look in a system where we're actively cultivating the health of the soil, and we're looking to increase the amount of economic gains that are in the hands of the people who are stewarding our agriculture system? Anybody have overpower the bad with the good? Yeah, so there's something here that I've been sort of dancing around, probably not very elegantly, which has to do with, regenerative agriculture and regenerative economics are completely connected. Well, you can't have one without the other. And that weaves back to policy, and that weaves back to governance. So I was sitting back at the table with Rosie, and she said something that really sat with me, it really sunk in, which is, this is going to take all of us doing many different things. And one of the things that we got to overcome is the illusion of separation between someone who's doing policy work in Washington, D.C. towards agrarian reform or shifting subsidies away from, chemical agriculture, and somebody who's working to revolutionize broad acre annual agriculture into a no-till revolution. Those people are on the same team. We're all on the same team. So one of the things that I've really been sitting with recently is what does it look like to have rigorous, deep, powerful disagreements because you want to serve the same thing? So what does it look like for us to be able to say to one another, I actually disagree with you, but it's because I love the same thing as you. It's because I love the soil. It's because I love the image of a world in which humans are serving the health of the biosphere. What does it look like for humans to for us as a society, as a group, as a movement, to deeply embody and explore what it looks like to have both heated agreement and heated disagreement in service to one another in a whole. So I think that's really where, I've got plenty of other things to say, but that's really what I want to kind of leave the conference with. Leave all of us to take out into, there's other plenaries, there's working groups, there's all these other things. What does it look like when you hear something and somebody says, like Ray talked about, he was narrating what it was like for him to talk to farmers, and he referred to Walmart. Okay. Or sometimes we're going to work with people who are doing GMO things because we want to improve the system. What does it look like to deeply hold to your value system and not say, wow, that's completely right, and I'm just going to let it go, but to deeply say, I wonder what's happening here, and I wonder how I could communicate what feels important to me and also listen to what's important to them, because I'm deeply committed to serving the same aim, which is what? Sequestering all of the atmospheric carbon that's been accumulated over the Industrial Revolution into biological sources so that we can increase the abundance and health that's the basis of our very existence as humans. So thank you all very much.